Hello, everybody. My name is Gilda Ross. I'm the Glenbard Student and Community Projects Coordinator. This is a special day for me, and I know it's going to be a special day for you too, because we have Dr. Sonja Lyubomirsky with us today. I have been a fan of hers for many, many, many years, and at last she is here with us at the Glenbard Parent Series. The good news is that she'll be back with us again at 7 p.m. You've got plenty of time then to share. We always welcome you to share, let others know that GPS is for everyone across the street, across the country, a cousin, a friend. We can all benefit and build healthy families with this engagement and connection and the education we'll receive today and the wisdom that we're going to learn about. So glad you're here. We're grateful to all of the sponsors who make this possible. I encourage you to take a look at the website and find the 50 programs that we host each year. Find the programs that speak to you in several different languages and come back. Circle your calendar and come back. Quickly, let me tell you about what is coming up. It is Live Life Well Week that's just about to begin at the Glenbard schools, and Sonja is helping us kick it off. The theme this year is it's not about being the best in the world. It's about being the best for the world. And so this is a perfect program to start us all off. Next week, in the midst of the week, we'll be hosting Eric Jackson, Motivating the Next Generation to Lead Boldly and Achieve Their Dreams. He will be speaking to students during the day and parents at night, other caregivers in the community. There'll be a free community resource fair with prizes and massages before his program from 6:30 to 7. It is a hybrid. So if you can come in person, we'd love to see you. Then the week following, we'll be talking with Lori DeSalutis. Her book is called The Eyes Are Never Quiet, Listening Behind the Behaviors of Kids. That's on Thursday, the 29th. And then on Tuesday, we have a program for young families. You want to check that out about behavior and misbehavior and tantrums. That's on the 27th. And then March brings Donna Jackson Nakasawa. She'll be talking about her book, Girls and Boys on the Brink. If you can come in person, there'll be a watch party at the College of DuPage at noon. This is, again, a hybrid, and again, we'll be with you at 7 p.m. on the 6th. Then we'll be following it with Ty Toshiro. Will be talking about his book, The Science of Why We're Socially Awkward and Why That's Awesome. We're talking about social skill building, something we know that our students are still very much in need of. So jam-packed spring, circle your calendar. Without further ado, I'm so happy to welcome Sarah Kirsch. She is the Assistant Principal of Instruction at Glenbard West, who will do the introductions. Sarah, take it away.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. It is my honor to introduce Sonja Lyubomirsky, PhD. She is a distinguished professor of psychology at the University of California, Riverside, and author of The How of Happiness and The Myths of Happiness, which has been published in 39 countries. She received her BA summa cum laude from Harvard University and her PhD in social psychology from Stanford University. Lyubomirsky's groundbreaking research, based on her original research on the possibility of lastingly increasing happiness via gratitude, kindness, and connection interventions, have been the recipients of grants and honors too numerous to mention. A few to highlight include an honorary doctorate from the University of Basel, the Diener Award for Outstanding Mid-Career Contributions in Personality Psychology, the Christopher J. Peterson Gold Medal, the Distinguished Research Lecturer Award, and a Positive Psychology Prize. It is a great honor to welcome this noted research scientist to the GPS Parent Series today. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. Let me just start sharing my slides. Everyone can see that, I hope. This is actually my office where I work, the psychology department at the University of California, Riverside. So I'm so delighted to be here, to be invited to speak to this very cool group and to share my research on happiness with all of you. I hope that you will find it interesting and useful in your own lives. Happiness is important for your kids, for students, and for yourself, right? So, and we're going to talk about why. So we'll talk about why happiness is important and how we can actually improve it. So let me kind of show you this is my title, and my name, by the way, means Lyubomirsky. By the way, Sarah, you pronounced it so perfectly. It means love and peace in Russian, so it's kind of appropriate for someone who studies happiness. And this is the book, The How of Happiness is the book that a lot of the research is described. And here are my wonderful graduate students and undergraduate students that have worked with me, collaborators over the years. Okay, so I'm going to begin today. Here's my title again. I'm going to begin first, I guess, by taking a very long step back to World War II. So during the Second World War, aviation experts spent a lot of energy and time and money, resources, into studying military planes that went down. And one day somebody asked, why don't we study the planes that stay up in the air? And I think it's a really good metaphor for the work that my students and collaborators and I do in the field of what we call well-being science. We study why happy people are happy, why successful people are successful, why healthy people are healthy. And so fortunately, a number of laboratories, including my own, have been working hard in sort of addressing these questions. So today I'm going to give you a flavor of the different kinds of experiments that we have done over the years to try to understand how happiness can shift over time, go up and down, mostly up. And I'm also going to give you a conceptual model, kind of a theoretical framework that drives our research and gives you the big picture. And I believe that most of us want to be happy. We don't necessarily use the same words, the same language to describe that wish. We might define happiness differently and we might have different ways to get there. But the desire for happiness, I think most psychological scientists have shown that appears to be really I don't like to use the word universal because that seems a very strong word, but maybe a near universal goal for people. We all kind of want to be happy. But let me start. I might as well start by defining happiness for everyone, so we're all on the same page. So I define happiness the way that researchers, the way that happiness scientists define happiness, and that is happiness really has two components, what's called the cognitive component, which is how we think about our lives, and the emotional component. And so basically the emotional component, it has to do with the experience of frequent positive emotions. So people who are happy often experience, not all the time, of course, but often experience peacefulness, joy, pride, interest, curiosity, affection, enthusiasm. Of course, the experience of negative emotions is important and functional in particular situations, right? Like when you see injustice in the world, it's important to be angry, and anger prompts you to do something about it. It's only when negative emotions are chronic, right, or too intense or acute that they're dysfunctional. Okay, so experience of positive emotions is one component of happiness, but that's not enough. The second component of happiness is having a sense that your life is good, that you're satisfied with your life, that you think about you're progressing towards your goals, kind of a good enough pace. And I like to think about these two components of happiness as being happy in your life and being happy with your life. So kind of you're a happy person if you have both of those components. Now, furthermore, hundreds of studies have shown that people who report being happy in their lives and being happy with their lives are basically more successful, like in the world. A lot of sort of good things happen to them. So basically, people who are happy report or are shown to be more productive and more creative. They're better leaders and negotiators. Happier people are physically healthier. They even live longer. They have better relationships. They have more friends. They're more likely to get married and less likely to get divorced. They're more likely to bounce back from adversity. And they are more generous. And so happiness isn't something that just feels good. It has many benefits for ourselves and for our families and for our communities and our workplaces. So being happy really leads people to sort of accrue good things in life. Some people feel like that's kind of unfair. Not only do the happy people get to be happy, but they also get to sort of succeed in terms of their relationships and their work lives and their health as well. But let me go through some of these findings because we have control over a lot of these things, not everything, but some of them. So I want to start by telling you about a few of the studies on physical health, because of course it's so important to be healthy in terms of that happiness. Not only does being healthy makes you happy, but the opposite causal direction is true, right? So happiness leads to health. And by the way, the causal direction, of course, goes both ways in all of these findings. So getting married makes people happy, but happy people are more likely to find someone who wants to marry them, that they want to marry. So the causal direction goes both ways. Okay, so let's start with health. And so there are many longitudinal studies in this area. And basically what these studies do is they measure people's happiness at one point in time, and then they measure their health. And then they come back maybe in 3 years or 10 years or 30 years later, and then they measure people's health and they see, are they still alive? Do they have pain? Do they have infectious diseases? Do they have chronic illnesses? And so lots and lots of studies are in this area. And so every single line of this slide is basically 1 or 2 or 3 big studies. So this research shows that people are happy at one point in time, have a lower incidence of stroke 16 years later, right? So I measure your happiness today, you will have a lower incidence of stroke 16 years later, lower incidence of different kinds of heart disease in 10 and 15 years later. If you have heart disease, you're more likely to survive it up to 11 years later if you're happier today. If you have lung cancer, you're more likely to survive it 3 years later. Happy people are less likely to be on disability 11 years later. They're less likely to die in a car accident 8 years later. And by the way, I'm happy to talk about why for some of these findings, because they're very interesting. And just overall, happier people are less likely to die of all causes 30 or 50 plus years later. By the way, I always like to mention that, first of all, these findings often control for things like body mass index and ethnicity and age. But that sometimes when I describe these findings, people feel bad because they think like, well, gee, not only so if they're not healthy, that it makes it sound like it's their fault, right? That they're not happy enough. And I'm not actually a health researcher, but the researchers in this area are very careful to point out that, of course, there are multiple determinants of health, and happiness and positive emotions is one of those determinants. So why are happy people healthier? Maybe not maybe, we know that they practice better health habits, right? Happier people eat better. They're more likely to exercise, more likely to wear seat belts, less likely to have road rage, for example. Maybe one reason why they're less likely to die in a car accident. They're more cautious while driving. They're more likely to go for health checkups. So there are behaviors that they engage in that contribute to their health. Also, it looks like maybe also happy people have stronger immune systems. So there's some research on that I'm happy to discuss later. Okay, so I just kind of want to quickly go through some of these. Also, there's some work that shows that happier people are more productive at work and more creative, and students and young people also are more productive, do better at school if they are happier. And I'm sure that's not going to be a surprise to anyone here. And so I'll show you a couple of studies that are kind of typical studies in this area. So here's a study of adults. By the way, most studies are conducted on adults, although I'll show you some studies with younger people. So here's a study where researchers went to an organization, actually it was an agency, a state agency, and they measured how happy employees were at this agency. And then they came back 3.5 years later, and they asked the managers to rate these same employees on sort of their overall work performance and also on these dimensions. Do they offer good ideas during meetings? Do they have high performance goals? Do they pay attention when you're talking to them? And do they work well on a team or interdependently with others? And in this study, it showed that the happier the employees were, the higher they were rated by their supervisors on all of these dimensions and overall. And again, note that their happiness levels was actually measured 3.5 years earlier. So this these studies, and there's a number of studies that are very, very similar. So these studies suggest that sort of happiness at work really matters. Happiness at work and at school really matters. And here's a quick study I wanted to show you about creativity. So the other studies I've shown you are correlational or longitudinal, and so it's hard to figure out what the cause is. But one way that we can infer causality is by doing experiments. So researchers have done experiments where they've induced happy mood. So the idea is that you randomly assign some people to experience a happy mood, and you assign other people to have a neutral mood or other kinds of emotions. And so this is a study that was done actually with doctors. These were all internists. And researchers induced happy mood by giving them chocolate and candy. Now, there are different ways of inducing happy mood. You can show like a funny video. You can give someone some positive feedback. But this is a kind of a tried and true way of inducing happy mood. So some participants were randomly assigned to get this sort of package of chocolate and candy. Others were not given chocolate and candy. And then they were given a test of creativity. Now, you might wonder, how do you measure creativity sort of in the laboratory? And there's different ways of doing it. But one way, kind of a simple way, is there are these sort of tests of creativity. So here's an example. There's a test where you get like 20 items like this. And so each line has 3 words on it. And so here's an example: crab sauce pine. And so you have to find a 4th word that is related to each of these 3 words. And if you put them together, they'll form new words. Okay, so crab sauce pine. So maybe everyone can think about what the answer to that is. I don't know if our chat is enabled, but it doesn't really matter. We'll sort of think about that. Yeah, okay. So you can, yeah, do you want to put in chat what the answer is? If it's enabled. But anyway, oops. So the answer to this one is apple. All right, so crab apple, applesauce, pineapple. Okay. So, and it's one of those things, once you see it, you're like, oh, that seems obvious, right? But it's not hard. It's pretty hard to do. But what's interesting, and so there's a whole bunch of these items like that. This is just one of them. And so the results were that those doctors, these are all doctors in the study, who were put in a happy mood by just giving them this little gift of candy, actually did better on this test. They showed more creative and sort of creative and flexible thinking, which is kind of cool, right? So this study and many others like it show that even sort of transient, fleeting positive emotions, right? Even if you're in you feel a little, someone gives you a piece of chocolate, a colleague brings you a coffee or something, puts you in a little bit of a good mood, even that little bit of burst of positive emotions can have important consequences, right? So making sure that your students, your coworkers, your kids, your friends experience even short-term positive emotions is very important, is the bottom line here. Okay, so that was just sort of a little bit about how the benefits of positive emotions, the benefits of happiness. I don't really think I need to convince most people that happiness is a good thing, but basically the majority of people in the world say they want to be happier. So I don't want to need to convince them, but when I talk to people like at parties about what I do, I'm often asked, when I tell people that I study happiness, I'm often asked, is it even possible to be happier? And some people kind of say, I think, happiness is something you sort of either have it or you don't. Well, fortunately, the answer is yes. And I wouldn't be here, I think, today talking to you if you couldn't do anything about your happiness. Fortunately, there are tons of randomized controlled interventions that have been conducted that show that people can become happier when they deliberately practice certain kinds of activities, certain kinds of practices, like expressing gratitude, savoring the good things in their life, doing acts of kindness, acting more extroverted. So here's a list of different interventions that we have done, but there's lots of researchers have done various interventions. Now, these interventions are basically like clinical trials. Now, after COVID, everyone knows what a clinical trial is, right? So basically, we are testing something that we think is going to, quote, work. In this case, work to make people happier or to feel more connected. And so we randomly assign some people to do acts of kindness or write gratitude letters. And then we randomly assign other groups to do something different, something more neutral. Usually our control group, we ask people to organize their time, because we say, it's good to organize your time. So write out kind of what you're doing every day or every week. Write out your activities every day or every week. And so we tell them it's sort of a positive thing to do, to organize their time. But that's considered kind of a more neutral activity. That's usually our control group. Okay, so I'm going to tell you today about some of these studies that were that we've done, but we're going to focus today on how being kind, grateful, and social, sort of being more generous, being more grateful, being more extrovert or social makes people happier. So my lab and other labs have been testing the conditions under which these activities are most successful in making people happy. By the way, I'm also interested in the conditions under which sometimes these activities might backfire and sometimes make people actually less happy. So we can talk also about sort of the dark side of the pursuit of happiness if you're interested. I don't have time to go through it like in a lot of detail. So my laboratory conducts what we call positive activity interventions. And so these are studies where we typically instruct people to do something positive, like I just mentioned. We ask them to do it on a regular basis, like usually like 4 weeks for a month or maybe 2 months. And then we follow them across time to see if doing these practices makes them happier over time. And we have various control groups. So this is sort of the main question we ask: how and why do these strategies work? And this is the main, so bear with me for a minute. This is sort of the main theoretical framework that drives my research, kind of the how and the why. And so basically this framework, so you see performing positive activities, does it make you happy? This is, we're sort of asking questions like, what factors having to do with the person who's trying to be happy, the person features that I just circled, how motivated are they? What is their culture? What is their personality? Does that matter, right? So like, are introverts going to be made happier the same way as extroverts, or people in East Asia versus people in Western Europe? So do those factors matter? Do they affect the effectiveness of any kind of strategy? But also features of the activity itself, do they matter? So like, the dosage matter? Does the variety matter? So getting back to sort of clinical trials, when we're testing, say, a new vaccine, we're asking questions like, does this vaccine work? What is the appropriate dosage of the vaccine? Should some people not take the vaccine? Maybe it's going to harm them. Should this vaccine not be combined with other medications or vaccines? And the same kind of questions we're asking about something like, say, gratitude. So if you want to, does gratitude make people happier? Is there an appropriate dosage of gratitude? Should some people not express gratitude because it actually might harm them? And my theory is that, for example, if people who are severely depressed maybe should not be asked to express gratitude. So we can get back to that if you're interested. Okay, so this is the how of the pursuit of happiness, and the why is it that expressing gratitude makes you happier? Maybe it leads to more positive events, more positive thoughts, more positive behaviors. So again, the question this theory is asking is, if you express gratitude, why does it make you happier? So I'm going to come back to this framework when I talk about the studies. Okay, and I'm going to start really simple. This is actually the very first intervention that we ever did back in like 1998. Okay, so wow, like 26 years ago. Well, we asked people to count their blessings to see if that made them happier. So I think everyone here knows what it means to like keep a gratitude journal, to count your blessings. So here are the instructions that we gave people. So I'll get back to this. So this is a 6-week intervention. And so people were asked to write down up to 5 things that they were grateful for. Now, furthermore, in this study, we were interested in sort of dosage, right? So what's the optimal dosage of counting your blessings? Like, should you do it every day or, once a week? So here in this study, we asked people to count their blessings either once a week. So every Sunday night, and you can all do this at home, write down what you're grateful for, or 3 times a week, every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday night. So today's Thursday, so start today. Okay, and then we want to see if that made them happier. Okay, so again, this is a 6-week intervention. We measured happiness and gratitude from before to after the experiment. And by the way, I'm happy to share our measures of that we use to measure happiness. We basically ask people how happy they are overall relative to other people, how often they experience positive emotions. Okay, so these are histograms, and they show on the left changes in gratitude and changes in happiness from before to after the 6-week intervention. And you can see here there was only in one group that we actually showed that people became more grateful and they became happier. And that was the group that counted their blessings once a week. You see that once a week group. The control group, we didn't think anything would happen with the control group, and then the and by the way, these were undergraduates. So these were like 18, 19-year-olds. So not too far off from the high school students that you guys teach or parent. And so these are undergraduates. So only those that counted the blessings once a week, they became more grateful and they became happier. And so we were actually really interested in this. We actually thought, well, gee, maybe expressing gratitude more often would be better. It actually turns out it really depends on the person. So some people tell me, you know, I wake up every morning and I think about what I'm grateful for, and that works for them, and that's fine. But overall, average once a week works. And I should remind everyone that scientific research, at least in psychology, is mostly about averages. So it's the same thing with like clinical trials. It's about an average. The average effect is it works best once a week. Just like if you're going to study a new surgical technique, on average, it's going to work better this one versus that one, but that doesn't mean that it's going to be the same for everyone. Okay, so we thought that maybe counting blessings 3 times a week might become monotonous. It might become kind of a chore. It might lose its freshness and meaning. And so actually, my book, The Myths of Happiness, is a lot about this idea called hedonic adaptation, that we sort of adapt or get used to things that we do over and over again, and it actually might lose its freshness and meaning. So something important to think about. Okay, now I'm going to tell you about a study. So okay, getting back to the theoretical model, here I circled dosage. So here's a study that showed us the importance of considering the appropriate dosage of any kind of practice, whether it's medication or it's physical exercise, meditation, or any kind of practice like gratitude that we're talking about here. Dosage is important. Okay, so now I'm going to switch gears and talk about an intervention where we asked people to do acts of kindness. Now, acts of kindness is very powerful. Now, we usually are generous or kind to others because we think it's the right thing to do, or we see a need and we want to help people. But also it turns out that it actually helps the giver as much or even more than the receiver. And it really is true. We actually have done studies to show that it truly is better to give than to receive. That the receivers feel happy for a bit, but the givers actually feel happy much longer. So in this intervention, we asked people to do acts of kindness, either 5 acts of kindness for 6 weeks. So every week for the next 6 weeks, do 5 acts of kindness each week. But we asked them either to do it all in one day. So like every Monday, say starting next Monday, do 5 acts of kindness that you don't normally do. We actually often now do about 3 acts, 5 could be a lot. It depends what it is. I mean, it could be opening the door for someone, putting money in a parking meter, right? It doesn't have to be a huge thing, but it could be like driving someone to the airport, you know, giving some money to a homeless person. And then 5 acts of kindness on different days. So okay, here's the examples actually from this particular study that we did. This is also with college students. So, oh, I'm sorry, this is with both students and adults. So these are the kinds of kind acts that people said that they did in our study. One of the undergraduates said, emailed the professor, thank you for his hard work. Okay, so these are the kind of acts that people did. And here are the results. So this is, again, changes in happiness from before to after the 6-week intervention. We actually found that people who did acts of kindness on different days, they even showed, it's really not significant, but they even showed a sort of a little bit less happiness. But those people who did acts of kindness all in one single day became happier relative to the other 2 groups. And that we think it's something really salient and impactful and powerful to do all these acts of kindness all at once, right? Sort of like on Monday, you just feel good as a person. You might get a lot of positive feedback from people you're helping. You might get appreciation. And so actually from then on, we've actually done quite a few acts of kindness interventions. There's lots of reasons why doing kind acts makes people happier, from that it makes you feel good to makes you feel just kind of optimistic about humanity as a whole. You know, it just makes you feel like we're all kind of interconnected. And also because they're social acts. So I'm going to get back to that in a minute. Kind acts are usually social acts. So here's another example of dosage. And by the way, now I know the SATs are no longer kind of used in a lot of colleges or requested, but I was told by actually a friend of my kids. By the way, I have 4 kids. So I know what it's like to spend time to raise kids or to teach kids. My kids are 10. One of them just turned 13, 10, 13, and then also 22, 24. So I've raised them through college already, 2 of them anyway. But one of my kids' friends who had taken the SATs were like, oh my God, this study was on the SATs. So that was kind of exciting. So, and not only was it, my advisor used to say, you know, you've made it when your research is the right answer to an SAT or like a GRE or whatever, MCAT test, as opposed to a distractor or a filler, right? So if so students actually on the SAT were shown this graph and and they were asked to interpret the results. Okay, so it was kind of fun. Okay, so okay, here's another kindness interventions another typical intervention that we've done that's we think actually that's even a better sort of way to test it. We ask people either to do acts of kindness for others, and then the control group is either organize your time, write out what you're doing every day, or do kind acts for yourself, which is interesting. A really great comparison. So this could be kind of self-care. This could be sort of self-indulgent acts like, oh, have a piece of chocolate, get a massage, take a nap. We're not talking about self-compassion. I can talk about that later, but just do something nice for yourself. Actually, someone sent me an article yesterday. Yesterday, of course, was Valentine's Day, and I didn't realize that like the Gen Z, it's become kind of like a self-care day, and so they're sort of encouraged to, you know, like, I don't know, whatever, do things for themselves, take a bath and whatever, get chocolate for yourself. And so this is kind of the kind acts for self group. Now, self-care, self-indulgent acts, as long as they're not dysfunctional, you know, very good thing to do. But they don't necessarily last, right? Like the happiness from them doesn't necessarily last. But we thought that doing acts of kindness for others would actually make the happiness last. So here is a graph that shows that this is psychological flourishing, just another word for happiness, basically. At baseline, you see everyone sort of close to the same place. And then post-test, this is a 4-week study. Post-test is right after the 4 weeks are over. That the intervention ends there. And then we have a follow-up 2 weeks later. And you see that it's only people who were asked to do kind acts for others. And these are 3 kind acts for others every week for 4 weeks versus 3 kind acts for yourself every week for 4 weeks. And so the people, you see the red line, people get happier and they stay happier even after the study is over 2 weeks later. They're still, see, they go up and stay up. The group that did kind acts for themselves, or the control group, they actually, a week later, 6 weeks later, they don't look any different. I have no doubt that they felt good in the moment as they were like having that piece of chocolate or getting a massage, but it doesn't last. So that's we kind of like this design, and this shows that it's very important. See I circled other oriented versus self-oriented. It's very important that when you're trying to make yourself happy, that you want to focus not on yourself, but on other people. So it's almost like a little bit counterintuitive, right? If you want to make yourself happy, you want to try to make other people happy. And that's actually a really good way to make yourself happy. Okay, I want to say a little bit about culture. We've done lots of studies looking at cross-cultural differences, because you might wonder, is this all American and, you know, sort of Western culture? And so we have lots of cross-cultural studies, and so do my colleagues. And so here's an example of a study we did where we compared students at UC Riverside, where I teach in California, to students at Seoul National University, kind of a top university in South Korea. And we asked them to either write gratitude letters each week for 6 weeks, or to do 3 acts of kindness each week for 6 weeks. So I already told you about those. Oh, I haven't actually mentioned gratitude letters, right? So, well, but I think everyone probably knows what a gratitude letter is. So these interventions can be pretty powerful, where we ask people once a week to pick someone in your life that that has supported you, and write them a letter of gratitude. But you don't share the letter, just write it to yourself. I mean, you could share the letter, but sharing is a whole other thing, right? But just sitting down, and I might pick my mom, you know, who I love very much and who's done so much for me, has sacrificed so much for me over her, you know, we're immigrants, you know, really sacrificed her whole life for me and my brother. And, you know, I write a letter about how much I appreciate my mom, and I don't have to even share it. And it makes me feel so good, right? It makes me feel connected to her. It makes me feel happy. And so anyway, we had students write either gratitude letters or do acts of kindness each week. And so here's what we found. So here's, first on the left is happiness or well-being from before the study to mid-test is right in the middle. This is a 6-week experiment. Mid-test is 3 weeks into it. Post-test is at the end. And these are the American students. And you see how both kindness is orange and gratitude is yellow. You see how both groups got happier, okay? They both go up. That's what we'd expect. But then what we really did not expect is the South Korean students got happier when they did acts of kindness. They actually did, well, it's a non-significant trend down, did not get happier when they wrote letters of gratitude. And so that kind of started a whole bunch of research where we're trying to understand, wow, like that's an interesting cultural difference. Why wouldn't students in South Korea get happier when they wrote gratitude letters? And I have lots of thoughts about that. I've given talks in South Korea where we ask people, and I've gotten lots of feedback about how gratitude in other cultures is perceived differently than in the US. Sometimes there's like a burden of reciprocity. Sometimes it might even seem kind of insulting. Something interesting I heard South Korea is that like in the US, I don't know how, I'm sure everyone here who has a child who's say a teenager or works with teenagers, when they express gratitude to you, it feels great, right? It's amazing that when they express gratitude to you, it's not very often, probably. But in South Korea, it was still parents can be kind of insulted when their kids express gratitude to them because it's like they're implying that parenting is somehow optional, right? And so that was very interesting that gratitude is perceived differently in different cultures. So we're still sort of pursuing that question. If anyone has sort of thoughts about that, or how gratitude might be perceived in other cultures that we haven't studied. So I just circled culture. This is a study that showed the importance of culture. Okay. Now I want to talk about, again, go back to kindness and talk about what it is about kind acts that is powerful. So here's the thing. When we ask people, do 3 kind acts a week, most kind acts are also social acts. Now, why is that? Now, if I ask you to do a kind act tomorrow, you could give money to charity, for example, and you could do it anonymously. And that would be, I guess, not very social, although that's not very common, certainly not in our studies. Usually what people do is they literally like approach someone and they do something. And I would say even like if I'm giving money to charity, I'd still maybe like kind of envisioning how my gift might help an actual person. And so anyway, so we were wondering whether the reason that acts of kindness make people happier is that they're also social acts, is that they're more social. And I'm actually doing a lot of studies now looking at like just socializing, just like connecting with other people makes people happy. That's actually sort of one of my conclusions. I'll kind of jump to my conclusion is that it's important to just be in touch and communicate and have conversations with other people. As a little digression, my colleagues and I did a study where we asked people to have a Zoom conversation with a stranger for 30 minutes. Now, if I asked all of you today, all right, imagine later today or tomorrow, you have this half-hour appointment and you're going to have a Zoom conversation about anything you want with a stranger. Now, I'm an extrovert, and even I would be like, I don't really necessarily want to do that. I'd rather do something else. Okay, I'll do it. Maybe it'll be okay. Fine. But it turned out it had a huge happiness effect. So on average, people felt so much happier after this 30-minute conversation with a stranger than before. So just showing being social matters a lot. So here's a study we did where we asked people to do 3 kind acts every week for 4 weeks. So I already showed you kind of that type of study, but we compared them to people who were asked to do 3 social acts per week for 4 weeks. And by that, what I mean is, this was done at work. And so kind acts would be like, I bring a coffee to my colleague, or I help them with a computer problem. Social acts would be, I chat with a colleague that maybe I don't usually chat with. So these are things that you do more sort of over and above what we usually do, right? So this is a way that you're changing your life, and they're doing it over the course of 4 weeks. And so we actually found, we actually found no differences between people who did social acts or kind acts. Both groups got happier and felt more connected. And so we're like, wow, interesting. So maybe it's just being social matters. But then what was interesting is we asked people to do these behaviors in person. By the way, this was before COVID. So they could be in person or by video chat or phone, social media. And we asked them, how connected did you feel? Like when you whatever, when you were like giving social support to someone, say over FaceTime or over social media or in person. And this is actually pretty not surprising that if you're in person, if you're by video or by phone, people felt much more connected than if they were interacting by text, email, social media. Not surprising. So, but what's interesting is what those three have in common is they all have voice in common. So they're face-to-face, but the phone is not face-to-face. All three of those involve voice, and those were more connecting. And so getting back to our the model, the medium mattered, the platform mattered, the more visual and voice contact, especially voice contact, the more connected people felt and the happier they were when they were being social, when they were being kind. And then we also found that it mattered who the person was that you're either helping or socializing with. And basically, the closer the person is to you, the more connected you felt. So if your partner, the numbers are basically percent connection. So like if I'm interacting with my colleague, coworker is in green over there in the middle, what percent of the time did I feel really connected? Did I feel warmth? Did I feel in sync? Did I feel a sense of mutual trust? That's our sense of feeling, a measure of connection. Now notice there's lots of connection. So for coworkers, it's almost 70% of the time, but for partners, it's more like 80%, right? So you can see that for strangers, it's almost 60%. That's pretty good. And there's now lots of research showing that just saying hi to your barista when you get your coffee, chatting with your neighbor really contributes to happiness. So even sort of acquaintances, strangers also matter, those interactions. Okay, so the target also mattered. The closer the target of kinder social acts, the more connected people felt and the happier they were. Okay, so I also want to tell you about some studies that show that kindness not only makes people happier, but it can change our immune gene expression. So this was a study we did, and it should be hopefully easy to grasp because I already showed you the same paradigm. So we had 4 groups. We asked people to do acts of kindness for others. We asked people to do acts of kindness for themselves. We asked people to keep track of their daily activities. And we also have an extra group where we asked people to do acts of kindness for the world, kind of like pick up litter or do something, conserve water, do something good for the environment. But in addition to asking them how happy they were from before to after, and this was a 4-week intervention, we took blood from the participants and we sent them to the lab and we saw to see how it changes gene expression. And we found and I'll explain what this means, we found that only in the group that was asked to do acts of kindness for others, this group showed changes in their RNA gene expression associated with a healthier immune profile. So basically, this decrease you see only in the other group showed downregulation of pro-inflammatory gene expression, downregulation of pro-inflammatory genes. Now, think more inflammation is bad, right? So you want less downregulation of pro-inflammatory genes. So anyway, just healthier to have less pro-inflammatory gene expression. We've also replicated the study, and we now also have some hint that there's more antiviral gene expression. So that's pretty cool. So it's also good for this is just an indicator of health. This is actually not health. It's just a marker of health, but some suggestion that doing acts of kindness is also good for your health. We also found that kindness boosts peer acceptance. This is a study that we did with in middle schools, where we asked kids in middle school to either do acts of kindness for others or to just go visit a friend. So the whereabouts condition is like go visit places, not necessarily friends, or do acts of kindness. And here, before and after the study, we asked the kids to circle the other kids in their classes that they wanted to play with. So this is a measure of peer acceptance or popularity. So circle, as you say, circle the names of students who would like to be in school activities with and also to play with. And so basically what we found is those kids who did acts of kindness, they were more likely to be nominated by other kids in their class as someone that they wanted to be in activities with after the study than before. So basically it's like they somehow became more accepted, more popular after they did acts of kindness. But interestingly, the acts of kindness that these kids did were almost all outside the classroom. They were like, help my mom with, cleaning up the kitchen table, help my sister with her homework. So something rubbed off on these kids when they came back into the classroom. They were maybe somehow more positive, more confident, happier, that their peers basically liked them more. So that's pretty cool. Okay, oh, this is kind of cool. You know, you guys know Highlights magazine. I used to read it when I was young. They did a whole spread on my research where for kids on this kindness research. So these are examples from kids, different ages, mostly pretty small kids, because these are like, yeah, ages like 6, 7, 9, and the things that they were doing to be helpful. It was really cute. At lunch, I sat next to the new student, Patience. It was her first day of school. I opened the door for an older man who couldn't open the door himself. So kind of cute. Okay, so we also have found, and this is the last study I want to tell you about, and this is done with high school. So we actually have done not that many, but a few studies in high schools. So we did a big study with over 1,000 high school students, and there are 4 different high schools we went to. There's one very diverse charter school in New York State. And then the other 3 were in California. One was a fancy private school in Los Angeles. One was a big public high school in one of the beach cities in Manhattan Beach in California. And one was a Catholic school, kind of a working class Catholic school in the Valley, San Fernando Valley in California. So, so really very nice mix of different types of students. And these are all 9th and 10th graders. So we asked these kids to, or I guess maybe I'll go back. So 9th and 10th graders, we asked them to write gratitude letters. Okay, so it's a month-long study. We asked them write gratitude letters every week to your parents, to your teachers, to your coaches. Pretty cool, right? So every week they wrote gratitude letters. In the control group, we asked them to organize their time and just write down the activities that they're engaging in, right? So they're also doing something mildly positive, but not gratitude. So we thought what we find is that, you know, we thought gratitude would have some positive effects, but we thought the gratitude is motivating. Okay, so when you are truly grateful, say to your mom for working extra hard so that she could pay for your music lessons, or you're really grateful for your math teacher who stays after school on their own time to help you with your math, you want to kind of pay it back, right? You want to make them proud. If your math teacher is staying after school to help you, you really want to do well on the math test, right? You want to work hard. If your mom is taking a second job so you could have music lessons, you want to really work hard on those lessons, or you want to be a better person. You want to be kinder. Also, you want to be healthier. You want to be a better student. And so that was our hypothesis. So we actually asked these 14 and 15-year-olds, how much work do you want to really put in to be a better person? We actually asked them that directly. And we did find that those who were writing gratitude letters actually reported, yes, I want to improve myself and I want to be a better person, at least self-report. So that's a good start. This is a kind of a nice finding. One of my favorite findings, we looked at their eating behavior, how much junk food, fast food, and fruits and vegetables they were eating. And we actually found the students in the gratitude group, the orange line, their eating behavior actually increased or didn't, basically over the course of the year, the control group, you see their eating behavior gets worse. So this is actually a 4-month period from baseline to post-test of 3 months follow-up. It's a 4-month period over the course of a semester of a school year. So the control group, the eating behavior gets worse. The gratitude group, they're eating relatively more fruits and vegetables, less junk food, less fast food. They kind of want to be healthier. And then life satisfaction. If you look across any school, well, middle schools, high schools, colleges, motivation and satisfaction goes down over the course of a year, a semester. Students, you all know this, they sort of start off gung-ho, and they kind of lose motivation or satisfaction. And I really like this finding. The control group, you see, loses satisfaction over the course of 4 months. The gratitude group is buffered from that loss, right? Their satisfaction stays the same, which is very nice. Okay, so that's basically the end. We're coming towards the end of my talk. Basically, I hope that I've convinced you that happiness is a good thing, that it's important. Most people care about it. And that if you're happy, if you become happier, if you help students, kids, coworkers become happier, they could be healthier, they could be more productive, creative, they could have better relationships. So, but what we are really finding in our research, that what really works to become happier is to do something, not to focus on yourself, but to focus on others, to focus on how other people have helped you, gratitude, to help others, and to actually spend time socializing with others. So as one of my colleagues, late colleagues, Chris Peterson said, other people matter. That is sort of the key. The key to happiness is social connection. Thank you.
I've got some questions already that are coming in. If you live with a depressed person, how can you best encourage them to incorporate some of your activities for happiness?
Great question. So I want to start by saying, if depression is an illness and it really usually requires treatment by professionals, including perhaps antidepressant medication. So what I'm talking about is a kind of a supplement to all of this, because depressed people don't want to just not be depressed. They don't want to go from -5 to 0. They want to go from -5 to +5, right? So the kind of practices that I'm talking about, I think, can help someone who's depressed get, a little bit higher, again, as a supplement. And it really is hard to encourage. I mean, the one, because if you can't get off the couch, it's really hard to get them to do anything. And actually, because I'm actually talking to a depressed teenager right now, and yeah, she's just like, it's really hard to motivate her to do anything. And so the one of the keys, and I'm not going to say anything that no one knows, that you guys don't know really, but it's really baby steps, right? So to start really small. So here, one study, for example, was done with depressed women, and they were sort of, nothing worked for them, but they were asked to do just to think about 3 good things in their day, 3 good things. So like, and it could be little things, right? Like the sun came out today, I had a nice sandwich for lunch. So they just started with really small, like just write down or tell me, what are 3 little good things about your day? So and then maybe, I don't know, do some of those little good things if it's something that you can repeat. So it has to be really, really started small. And I also want to say, I mentioned how gratitude can be actually harmful if you're very depressed.
Right.
The reason is that people who are severely depressed feel like they're a burden on their family and friends. And so if you ask them, oh, why don't you write a letter of gratitude about how grateful you are to your family and friends, that might actually make you feel more of a burden. So if you're talking about someone who's very severely depressed, gratitude, at least in that way, is not going to work. But just thinking about 3 good things in your life might work. But again, anything social, it's just amazing, right? Just saying hi to a neighbor, just anything, just even a little bit social, can lift one's mood a little bit.
You've been doing this research for a very long time. I commend you for being one of the first to really, I mean, you're the OG, aren't you? So what has surprised you in when you started and to today around your happiness?
Such an interesting question. I've never been asked that question that way. Well, first of all, when I started doing the research, it was 1989, 35 years ago. And there's only one person who was doing research on happiness, Ed Diener. And he didn't even call it happiness. He called it subjective well-being. And he was looking at the correlations between well-being and age and income and things like that, which is very important to look at. No one had done actually experiments. And so when I started, I was so insecure. It was like it was considered this fuzzy, unscientific thing. So I guess the biggest thing that surprised me is that how huge it is. Or maybe it's surprising that it wasn't huge before. Like, why is it that no one was studying it or talking? I mean, people, of course, writers, thinkers have been writing about happiness, forever. Since Aristotle was 2,000 years ago, he was writing about happiness. But scientists weren't studying it because it was sort of not considered kind of something you could study. So it's kind of like love too, right? Like a long time ago, no one was studying love because it was considered this you can't study love. Actually, we can. And so, yeah, it's been surprising just how it's exploded. So now neuroscientists are studying it. They're looking at brains of people who are happy and unhappy. Economists, very interested in happiness. People around the world, there are now ministers of happiness in some countries. And so I've been invited to various places around the world to sort of talk about it. So yeah, and so I'm very, very happy, no pun intended, that that's happening. But we need to do more rigorous research, bigger studies, and to sort of to know more about what works, not just on average, but for different people. So for you, maybe something else, something might work for you that doesn't work for others, right? So we need to do more research.
And speaking about that research, there seems to be so much more now too about feeling all of the emotions, the happy and the sad. Can you talk about that for a minute?
Absolutely. So I don't want to, in fact, I should have mentioned that, right? So I mentioned a little bit before, of course, negative emotions are really important. when they are not chronic, when negative emotions, so anger, anxiety, sadness absolutely have their roles in our lives. They're all signals, right? Sadness is a signal, something's happening, it's a problem we need to address. Anxiety, something I need to prepare for in the future. Anger, something in the world that I see that maybe is unjust. But when they're chronic and they're like, they don't abate, then they're just suffering. Like they don't do any good. They do harm. But there's a lot more focus now on, used to be like cognitive behavioral therapy, which is still like extremely important, very, very effective. But it used to be, we're kind of just taught to like combat these thoughts. It's like, oh, you have this negative emotion. Why don't we think about why we're having it? It's all in your head. Now there's a lot about like somatic therapy, like thinking about what's going on in your body and thinking about like sort of this Buddhist idea, just feel the emotion, like let it run through you, just kind of accept it. That's okay. And of course, I'm a big believer in all of that. But that's part of being a happy person. A happy person is someone who's able to kind of accept that negative emotion, let it, think about what it means, but then move on, right? Because people who are less happy, they get kind of stuck in those negative emotions and they can't get unstuck. Yeah.
What a great explanation of that. That's wonderful. Here's a question. How does self-compassion affect well-being?
Mm.
Can you see that?
Yeah, actually, let me
Yeah.
look at the chat.
How does self-compassion affect well-being? Do self-compassion or affirmations increase happiness, or would they fall into acts of kindness for yourself? And then thereby, if it's for yourself, not create as much change.
Right. Well, okay, interesting. I don't necessarily mean that only things will create change if it's for others, but though it's just that on average, it just seems like focusing on others is more important, is more effective. Self-compassion, and I kind of mentioned that very briefly earlier, difference between self-compassion and self-kindness, right? So self-kindness is just kind of doing something nice, like self-care for yourself or self-indulgent. So self-compassion is a whole other thing that some of you looks like that maybe many of you know about. And this idea from Kristen Neff that you treat yourself like a kind friend would. I mean, there's different components of it, but the best sort of description is like when you're feeling down on yourself, we kind of beat ourselves up, like, oh, I can't believe you did. Why did I do this? Some people even will say like, you're an idiot. And when you think about like, how would a kind friend react? Like they would never say like, you're an idiot. Well, almost never, right? So it's really treating yourself the way a kind friend would treat yourself. And I think that's really important. But it's important in the domain of when things aren't going well, like when you have self-doubt, when there's a challenge, some kind of thing you're really being challenged by, adversity, it's kind of like when there's a self-esteem threat, that self-compassion is really important. And then some people are even studying self-love, which is a little bit different from self-compassion. So I think, yeah, absolutely important for happiness. It's almost like if you don't have self-compassion for yourself, yeah, it's hard. It would be hard to cope with those sort of self-doubt, when setbacks or self-doubts or challenges. But when things are sort of going well, you don't necessarily need to call on self-compassion. When things aren't going well, it's kind of like a coping strategy that I think is very important. Yeah.
It's interesting. It was your friends, Kristen Neff, when she came, she said, have you had Sonja yet?
Yeah.
And so I know the two of you are so much in sync. So we're getting close to closing time, but I always think about it. You're in an elevator with someone and you're going to the top floor. It's going to be a fairly long ride, but it's just an elevator ride. What do you want them to know about happiness?
That's such a great question. That social connection is the key to happiness. If I want to tell them one thing, first of all, that happiness is important. Don't poo-poo it. It's important. You don't have to be happy all the time, but yeah, do anything you can do every day to connect with someone. Or, I mean, it could be with a pet, it could be with God, right? But it's like connecting is the key to happiness.
And COVID has really impacted that. And so
But
therefore,
it has, yeah, it has. But of course, you could also connect online. I mean, it's not as good, but it has also in the sense that it's really revealed, illuminated the importance of connection, to everyone.
Mm.
Yeah.
Felicia, who works with
Mhm.
clients who suffer from substance misuse,
Yeah.
she writes, "This is a great presentation to share with my clients that are learning a new way to live."
Oh, it's so beautiful. Thank you so much. I would, yeah, that's really great. That would be really great. Yeah.
Well, everybody, I'll be back, and we know Sonja will be back, and I'm going to be ready with more notes to listen and not miss one word. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. We'll see you later tonight.
Thank you.
Have a good day,
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
You know, when I think about the impact of your research, I know that for many years we've been doing gratitude days, taking time in class, and this all is thanks to you and your important research. And if you look at any new, some of the new people that are out there, they're always talking about your really important research. So my question is, some of the other research that you're seeing coming out, that you're the foundation, what has impressed you with what else people are finding out in the field?
Wow. Yeah, it's a great question. Well, there's like really cool neuroscience research where, where scientists are actually looking at people's brains, like when they're expressing gratitude or love. Actually, I mean, I'm really interested in the research these days coming out on the social relationship aspect, right? Because I haven't talked as much about that relationships are really critical to happiness. Anything that helps us connect with others. Again, get your teenagers, well, hopefully they're already connecting, but any kind of, if they're feeling depressed, for example, to socialize, how does that work? How to have the research on conversations. It turns out, so I'll give that one example. It turns out that we're wrong about a lot of things. So we think, for example, when we're having a conversation with someone, conversations absolutely make us happier on average. Of course, not every conversation is happiness inducing, but on average, we think that other people want us to stop talking, stop the conversation before we do, but actually they don't. Like we kind of overestimate things. We think people don't want to go as deep as we want to. It turns out that no, other people want to go deeper. So I'm a big proponent of like, no more small talk, go deeper. Now, deep doesn't mean revealing your deepest secrets, but like share something real about yourself or your opinion or your experience more than just sort of small talk. I really love that work on conversations.
That's interesting. So, and now what about the role of exercise? We hear so much about exercise and happiness.
Yeah. Well, certainly health, it's the most important thing, right? With health and longevity. Well, happiness, there actually surprisingly have not been any big studies of exercise and happiness. Maybe partly because it's so obvious, like no one's going to fund a big study, right? So we don't actually, so I'm actually despite the lack of the big studies, I'm convinced that exercise makes people happier. But it's very important to find that what fits you. Because I kind of was like trying to allude to this idea of fit, that for some people, like gratitude, for like some people like to express gratitude every day, but on average it's once a week. And with exercise, find the exercise that fits your goals and needs and personality and lifestyle, because otherwise you sort of try something, you're like, that doesn't feel good, and you quit. And so it's better, quit that, but just do it differently.
Yeah. And you might say that group exercise in a classroom with other people might have that extra credit plus, right?
Exactly. Absolutely. So that you have the social on top of the exercise part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's a question you get asked most often when you talk to kids?
Oh, interesting. Because I was just talking to kids. I mentioned that this high school conference I went to. Well, they asked me like what makes me happy, or they're like, "Are you a happy person?" So okay, I'll say actually, I that's not why I study happiness, but I'm a pretty happy person. I'm not like happy all the time, but I'm like definitely I would say I'm above average in happiness. They asked me about that. Yeah, they're like, what makes you happy? That's the one that I sort of remember, I guess, the most. Yeah.
What do you think is the biggest misconception about happiness? Or I know your whole book is about myths. So talk about the myths.
Right. So I have two books. One is called The How of Happiness, which is sort of about how to be happy. the myths of happiness, also about how to be happy, but it's really focusing on myths. So there are a number of myths about happiness. Like, well, one myth is sort of this idea that happiness is somewhere out there. You're supposed to like catch it or kind of find it. And really it's something you create for yourself. I think a really important myth is about how happiness can be found in external things like money. Okay, by the way, money does make people happy, but pursuing money doesn't. So money, fame, power, and beauty. Those are the four called extrinsic goals. So pursuing money, fame, power, and beauty is actually associated with unhappiness. Pursuing the things that are associated with happiness are pursuing connection, personal growth, and by the way, that includes learning, right? Learning things, and contributing to society or community, and that's helping others, right? So those are the things that really make us happy, but pursuing those extrinsic goals, money, fame, beauty, power, don't make us happy.
We've talked a lot about connection and belonging, and I can tell you from being in a school system, there's a big emphasis on that for teachers to try to make kids feel like they belong, that they're wanted. And so, do you have some suggestions for how an instructor could facilitate that in the classroom, and then therefore a parent as well?
Yeah, wow. I would say I don't know if I can. I'm not my area of expertise. But Jeff Cohen wrote a book called Belonging, where he has it's a whole book is chock full of beautiful stories and suggestions about. And by the way, belonging is not just important for the students, but of course it's important for the teachers at the school, right? Do you feel like or the parents? I have to tell you, there were schools that my kids, since I have 4 kids, I've had lots of experience at all different schools and environments. But there are times that I just didn't really feel like I belonged as a parent at the
Yeah.
school. I didn't feel like I fit in with the other parents. I
Yeah.
don't think they were very nice to me sometimes early on.
Mhm.
It's important for all of us, right, to feel like, or in the family, like, do you really belong? Sometimes you feel like, I feel like I'm different from all the other family members. They all like sports and I don't like sports, right? They all like want to go skiing and I don't want to do that. So there's just so many ways we can feel like we belong or not belong. But so I totally agree with you. It's so important. I would say listening. I'll just sort of
Mhm. That's beautiful.
listening is so important. And actually I'm writing a book with a co-author where we're in part talking about the importance of listening. So I'll say two things, and I think this really helps with belonging. One is listening. Listen to the kid or the student or your colleague or your friend. Listen like you're going to be quizzed tomorrow on what they're saying, right? To really, because otherwise we're just thinking about what we're going to say next, right? Listen like you're getting tested on it. So in fact, listening workshops, they will ask you to tell a story, and they ask the listener to retell the entire story. And so you can really see if you're really listening. Ask really good probing questions, right? So often people are listening, they're showing, they have eye contact, they're doing the nonverbals, but they don't really say anything. And we rarely ask each other questions. Like, ask questions to these kids that show that you really listen to them, you remembered, that you care. Even if they seem like they don't want to be asked that question, I think that they still like value that, even if they don't answer, because we're worried more than we should be about being too kind of intrusive. We're actually more usually err on the other side, where we're not asking any questions. And the other thing is showing authentic curiosity. So hard. It has to be genuine, authentic interest. You can't fake it. They will know that you're faking it. So you have to find something in the student, in your colleague, whatever, that you are truly curious about and asking about that. And that's the goal. It should be a goal for all of us in our next conversation, to try to see something. And then that person will feel like they belong if you are genuinely curious about them, because it makes them feel seen and heard, like they're like a human, like they're not just another, number, name, but they're human.
It's such good advice when we hear from parents about how they know that as a result of COVID, their child's social skills are lacking, and so having these cues are really good for us to model for them. So ask these questions, and I love that what you said about imagine that there's going to be a quiz on this tomorrow. Yeah.
Exactly. No, and it is so true, not only because of COVID, but also because of being on their devices, right? They are not, their social skills are not as good as like when we were growing up. And so, whatever we can do to teach them social skills, whether it's literally to like role play. It's like, imagine you ask like, because my kids will say like, oh, I can't ask the teacher that. I'm like, why
Yeah.
not? I just can't. It's too embarrassing. So
Yeah.
like, let's role play how you're going to ask your teacher this question.
Yeah. We've got parents who told us about how they go to the library specifically so their child will ask the librarian a question, order the pizza, those kinds of things. So we often hear anxious parents have anxious kids. Do you think this is true about happiness?
Yes. So by the way, there's a genetic component in all of this. Genetic component one, absolutely anxiety, happiness, but also there's a role modeling kind of component, right? You grow up in an atmosphere of anxiety or happiness. Absolutely. It's genetic. That doesn't mean that if you have unhappy parents, doesn't mean you can't be happy or vice versa. Absolutely. Because as I said, you can with effort, right? With effort and willpower and motivation, you can change your happiness levels.
Mm-hmm. My last question for you. Somebody missed the talk and you want to get that person to know one thing that they didn't know before about happiness. What do you want to tell that one person who couldn't be here tonight?
Well, I kind of like the listening part, but I would say the key to happiness is social connection. Anything you can do every day, anything you can do to just reach out, be social, and be vulnerable, right? Like because people just think like, oh, no one wants to hear that, or they don't want me to reach out, just because we're wrong. We underestimate the extent to which other people want us to reach out to them. So reach out.
You reminded me about we hosted Susan Cain about her book
Oh yeah.
Bittersweet the other day, and she talked about when we do share those vulnerabilities, it's a beautiful way to connect. So you've reinforced that all. I've learned so much. I know we all have. We haven't lost anybody tonight because we're all sticking around to hear every word. This is where we go hug the kids, Sonja. So we're gonna go do that. You do that too, okay?
I'm gonna go hug my kids right now. Yeah, great. Thank you. Thank you,
So
everyone.
much. Great. See you again. Take care, everybody.